bed, get up, get up, get out of bed. Cheer up, the sun is red. Live, love, laugh and be happy.
Hello and welcome to this week's Robin Pod, which is powered by Budget Tyres Auto Centre, the only car specialist trusted by the players, club officials and supporters of Hull Kingston Rovers. And it's another bumper edition, as not only do we look back at the Robins' magnificent victory over Wyre, but we also look forward to the Castleford Tigers game on Friday night at Sewell Group Craven Park. And of course, we bring you Keith's Corner, Stat Attack, Robins Remembered and Question Time. All this and more on the Robin Pod Weekly. And to help us digest that magnificent performance at the Halliwell-Jones Stadium on Friday night is James Purling and Ben Guzdek. Good evening, gentlemen. How are we? Starting with you, James.
Yeah, I'm good. Thanks, Johno. Are you? Good evening, everybody. Good evening, Ben. Yeah, sort of everything's brighter and clear and beautiful, sunny after a fantastic win, isn't it?
Yeah, and Ben, welcome back to the Robin Pod.
Yeah, thanks for having me back, Chris, and good evening, everybody. Good evening, James and Johno. Absolutely brilliant night. Looking forward to delving into it.
Yeah, great to see so many people tuning in on YouTube already. And of course, if you're listening on the podcast, a huge thank you. Michael Morton, Derek, Steve, and Bazary straight in there. Evening, boys. What a time to be alive. It's very much on us to finish top two, is what I predicted. It's a shame, James, that I'm not starting the Robin Pod with us still top of the league. It was short-lived, wasn't it? It was a fantastic moment. But hopefully, James, it won't be the first time that we're the top of the pile this season.
No, it's fantastic. I think we have been top of the league once before. I think that was in our first season in Super League. I think when we were not first three out the first 4 games. But to be, get this so far in the season and to really be there on merit, and even if it was only short-lived, it means we're there now. We are competing with and being talked about with the likes of Wigan and Warrington as as in contention for the end of season places. And at the end of the day, there's still lots of rugby to be played. It's very much in our hands, and why can't we aim for the top spot? Yeah,
100%. And Ben, if we cast our minds back to last Friday, as Rover supporters, we've all been hoping for that 80-minute performance over the course of the season, haven't we? We've seen glimpses of the Robins producing absolute magic. We've seen them front up in defence. We hadn't quite seen them do it for 80 minutes, and we was all praying, wasn't we, that it'd be the Warrington game on Friday night that we did it, not only to get that monkey off the back in terms of Willie Peters beating Warrington, the only side that he'd failed to beat so far during his tenure as Rovers head coach, winning over in what is it, Merseyside, Cheshire, Lancashire, wherever you want to put Warrington.
not Yorkshire.
And also the fact that they could go top of the league as well. So the fact that they was able to put that 80 minutes performance in when there was a lot of things going against them was made the victory even more satisfying.
Yeah, just takes me back to when last time I was on and it was just after the London game. There was that chap that commented that it was our first away win outside of Yorkshire since, I think, 2013, he said. So I don't think anyone expected us even to get that, to win by that stature last Friday night. But yeah, cracking night. I thought first and foremost, probably Brett Delaney definitely had his paycheck that week. It was probably the best defensive performance I've probably seen Rovers play really for a long time. The commitment to scrambling, say like when Warrington broke a line a couple of times in the first half in particular, which I thought really won us the game, really. That defensive there, that scrambling, because it really kept us in the game, I thought. But yeah, first and foremost, it was a cracking night. And yeah, like I say, credit to Brett Delaney there. The defence was just top notch. He probably won us the game.
Yeah, and James, I mean, to keep Warrington down to just 4 points when they had been scoring pretty readily over the last few weeks, haven't they? Last time we played Warrington at their place, we got off to a slow start. We conceded points early, and we never seemed to recover from that. That wasn't the case this time, was it?
No, it wasn't. I think just really echoing what Ben was saying, that defence on Friday night was just outstanding. You look at the Warrington team. They've got players who can hit it from any part of the field. The likes of Ashton and Thewlis. Give Williams any space. He's going to cause havoc. But they're just Rovers. The Rover defence just did not give them an inch. I think we've been playing about 10, 15 minutes or so. My wife turned to me and she said, "We're going to win this because this defence is just absolutely awesome." And it was, they just basically snuffed Warrington out and just did not give them an inch. And it was absolutely fantastic. And, as you said, Ben, full credit to Brett Delaney, has certainly put all the work in and sort of really, again, just, said as I said earlier, laying down a marker now. So teams know that we can go to the Northwest and put in a performance like that. We've got that monkey off our back now. So let's go to Warrington, let's go to Wigan, let's go to Leigh, and then do a repeat performance.
Yeah, and it wasn't just the defence that was important, was it? It was Robin's ability to score at key points of the game, James, and we saw Jessie Silver in for the first try once again after just 5 minutes. Scoring the type of try that we probably all hoped or expected him to be scoring when he first came across from the NRL. And that season, last season, we probably didn't see the best of him, but he's come back. He looks leaner, he looks fitter, he looks sharper. He doesn't seem to have lost any power, though, and we've seen that with the tries that he's scored. And when he's running on from 10 metres, 5 metres out and running onto that ball, he looks pretty unstoppable at the moment. And he seems to be someone who's been reaping the benefit of a full pre-season with the Robins. And he is literally this season gone from strength to strength, and he's added that consistency to his game that we all hoped he would. Willie Peters, spoke highly of him when we signed him and said that he would be a fantastic player for the Robins, and we are really starting to see that now.
We are, and I think you're exactly right. We didn't see the benefit. I don't think he didn't play to his full potential last season, but this season I just think he's been absolutely sensational. Whether he's starting or coming off the bench, starting, put 20 minutes in, and he causes havoc and damage, and just with his runs, his post contact meters, his tackling, and as I said, he's just becoming a bit of a try scoring machine now as well, isn't he? Doesn't matter how far out they are, and it's almost exactly the same type of try he got on Friday night as he did against London. Well, it's exactly the same in the same sort of time. I think 5 or 6 minutes. So yeah, deserved, and that was really, I think really that set the platform, and it's what we needed. As you said, when we played them in early in the season at Warrington, we had 18-0 down after about 15 minutes, and the game had gone. This time, we started. We did. We got the attack going, and we got the defence going as well. And it just really, Sue's trying to really help lay that foundation.
Yeah, and Ben, Jessie still goes over for that try, but key to that as well. And you both already mentioned it. It was just that ferocious defence, wasn't it? Just aggressive, consistent. Very few penalties given away, and I think that was the key to it as well, Ben. It wasn't just the aggressiveness in the tackle, the willingness to defend as a group. It was also the ability to execute a plan and not concede penalties, which Rovers of old have done, haven't they? They've got themselves almost too hyped up. They've got themselves right up for the game, got themselves into it, and then giving away and conceding silly penalties that have allowed the opposition to march up the pitch and get field position and blah, blah. That wasn't the case against Warrington. And we really laid down a marker, didn't we, in them first, 5, 10, 15, 20 minutes, a marker to Warrington to say, no, you are going to have to work hard for field position. And to be honest, we didn't give them a sniff.
No, exactly. Like you say, the players, including, as James mentioned, Sue. What I was going to add to that was when Tanganoa went off, I think Sue probably played the rest of the game. So for a prop forward of his stature, he played quite a lot of minutes that night. And he pretty much from 1 to 17 all stepped up that night. It was, I think, probably the team talk from Willie Peters was probably going to suggest that it's going to be one of the defining matches of our season. So it was definitely definitely the right time of year for everyone to step up, and it showed. Like you say, the commitment was to defend. The game plan was spot on, especially in the second half, because like I mentioned earlier, our defence in the first half probably gave us that confidence to go on in the second half and execute the said offensive plans. And he did. We went on to get a comfortable score. But yeah, it was just a perfect performance from start to finish. Which would
and James, Tyrone May, he was the other scorer in that first half, of course, getting on the end of a Mikey Lewis kick. It was something that they tried a few times, wasn't it? Putting the ball up in that area. This time it came off for them. To be honest, James, a 10-0 scoreline at half time, as welcome as it was probably a little bit flattering to Warrington in terms of their contribution to the game, and the fact that at 10-0 they were being looking at it thinking that they're still in it. Of course, we saw disallowed tries, and 𝗫𝗓𝗏, obviously, he's voiced his displeasure at not being given the opportunity or awarded the opportunity to score a try for the Robins. But I do think that 10-0 scoreline was a little bit misleading because the Robins had been so dominant.
I think it was. There was total dominance, and I think Warren's going at 10-0 down. I think they'll have been quite pleased given the lack of progress that they've been able to make. I mean, realistically, it should have been 14-0, obviously, with that try disallowed. At the time, I thought, yeah, it's going to disallow it because I thought it'd be for the push on that of Hall. But then, obviously, when I saw it later on, and then the angle of that, it clearly Hall didn't touch it. It was an absolute shocker. We behind the goal had about fleeting seconds to see it, and I thought, yeah, this is going to disallow this. The video referee has multiple angles, high definition to be able to see it. The fact he couldn't see that was absolutely shocking. So I think if they'd gone in at 14-0, 16-0, it probably would have been a much better reflection of the dominance that Rovers had in that first half. So I said, Warrington, will have gone in there thinking, actually, yeah, we've done actually okay to limit them to 10-0, and probably did fancy their chances. And I think when they came out that start of that second half, I think they thought, yeah, we're going to throw the kitchen sink at Rovers, and that's what it looked like they was going to do. They tried to do.
Yeah, and to be honest, Ben, I mean, we're talking about defence. You've already mentioned Brett Delaney, and of course the impact he's had on the Robins' defence. The defence was fantastic, but it wasn't great defence in terms of hanging on and Warrington having lots of opportunities, and we were just dug in and stuck in there. It was a measured defensive performance. I think Mikey Lewis's kicking game was absolutely superb in terms of the way he gave his field position. But then across the board, the players matched them kicks by fronting up in defence, making it difficult for Warrington. And there's so many times, wasn't there, where Warrington were struggling to make meters, and we'd be able to get the ball. And for whatever reason, Warrington could target 𝗀𝗲𝗏𝗁 with their kicks, didn't they? And he gave it back and a bit more as well, because every time he get the ball, he looks assured under the ball, but also he was going on to make meters, as did 𝗬𝗏𝗍𝗂. And Warrington never seemed to recover from doing that. They pretty much kept peppering Burgess, and he kept coming up with the goods. Probably one of his best performances for the Robins since signing for us. Bit nervy though, obviously, when Ashton scores the try after 48 minutes, and I'm sure a lot of Robins supporters stood in that terracing will have been thinking, "Oh, here we go. Is this the start of the Warrington fight back?" But again, it never materialised, did it? And I think that's more credit to the Robins for not allowing them to crack on with the fight back.
Yeah, like when I mentioned earlier about perfect performance, you look like most of the games I see, well, all of the games I've seen this season, we've only been playing our best rugby for either the first half or the second half. But for the full 80 minutes, first and second half, like I say, 1-17, they stepped up that night. It was brilliant to see. There was class in both halves. But defensively in the first half and offensively in the second half, it was brilliant.
Yeah, and James, we saw further tries from Mikey Lewis and 𝗬𝗏𝗍𝗂. I mean, Mikey Lewis's try, power, strength, guile, his ability to shrug off defenders, not just one defender, two defenders, three defenders, I think even four. Just an outrageous ability, and he's probably playing the best rugby league of his career so far. I think he's been awarded man of the match for 3 games in a row now. I tried to look at the Man of Steel points, but of course, Super League website, the page wasn't working, so I couldn't see what points he's on. Of course, I think, is it the end of August where they stop showing the points, and then it's obviously announced in October. But if Mikey Lewis continues the form he is in, based on what he's done so far this season, you've got to say that he's a contender for Man of Steel this season.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a danger we're going to run on superlatives because it just seems to get better and better every game. For such a young kid, he could just turn something into nothing into something. I mean, that try on Friday night, I think, was a perfect example. There was literally, I didn't think there was any, when he got the ball, there was like nothing. Didn't think there was anything on. He just got the ball, started running, into the defensive line, created a bit of havoc, and suddenly it just opened up. And then the strength to actually then get the ball down, and it was quite surreal because I don't think we actually realised he actually scored. We saw it go over, and then there's like this lull and silence, and then the referee points to the try, and it's just like, how the hell did he score that? And it's become a trademark of his as well. And for such a young guy, for a halfback, I think his strength's incredible. He just seems to shrug off tackles every single time, and he has got to be in the contender for a Man of Steel. Got to be.
Yeah, Ben, I mean, Willie Peters speaks so highly of him, doesn't he? I mean, he still tempers it by reminding us of how young he is and how he's still learning his game. He talks very fondly of how he's adapted his game, how he's grown up, and how, although he's not in the leadership group with the Robins, he's still able to get his point across. And you can see how he commands the respect of the whole team. And he does dig us out of holes at times, doesn't he? He wins games single-handedly almost sometimes. So he's definitely improved. And for me, right now, Ben, he is probably the best player in Super League as we speak. And I'm starting to get worried a little bit with Penrith, the new NRL franchise, and what could be happening there. Because no doubt, if you look at players like Lewis Dodd from St Helens, who are already going to the NRL, surely people over there will be having eyes on him. I just hope he stays here for a long time, because he's a player that this club, this team can build around, and he's somebody that has got a huge career in front of him, let alone what he's doing now. And I hope that we're able to keep hold of him, because it's a meteoric rise that he's enjoying at the moment, but it's well deserved as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember we used to volunteer at Rovers, and I used to cover the reserves games. And I remember when Mikey's man of match performance against Newcastle Thunder, went to interview him after the game, and even the confidence he had in himself and the self-belief. And even I remember asking him, like, is this actually the right time for you to be stepping up into first team rugby? And he said, absolutely, yeah. And I think it was like next week or the week after he made his debut against Wigan at DW, and the rest is history. Absolutely, like I think he's scored like 14 tries this season. He's racking up Man of Steel points every week, so he's definitely been one of Rovers' stand-up players, and I think he's definitely going to be probably the player of the year. He just rallies the team together. He brings the fans together. With regards to Australia, money talks. Really, let's be honest about that. If he gets a good paycheck, he'll probably take it. Really, and we can't complain with Australian rugby. The standard there is immense. But I think we're all desperately hoping he stay, because he's definitely one of them one club legends that, well, if he can stay for the next 10 years anyways, he'll definitely be that one club legend, like Jack Wellsby will be when he stays at Saints.
Yeah, James, I mean, prior to the game, we was bigging up the battle between George Williams and Mike Lewis, weren't we? One player performed, one player didn't really, did he? George Williams, especially his kicking game was way off, wasn't it? And we saw a few sparks from him, but he didn't lead Warrington round the way that we expected him to do. And Mike Lewis, all action Mikey Lewis. He was in defence, he was in attack, he was putting the kicks in. Interestingly, the conversions were taken off him, weren't they, by Jez Litton ended up slotting over two after Mikey Lewis had scored one. But if somebody had never seen rugby league before and you said to him, right, you've got to identify England's leading halfback,
it'd have probably been Mikey Lewis that everybody would have mentioned rather than George Williams.
It would, and I think, you know, again, that just gives testament and credit to the Rovers defence on Friday night, that they're able to keep George Williams quiet and make him essentially really just look ordinary. And yeah, there's nothing else you can really say. You know, like I said, if you thought he was going to be, if he's England's number one halfback at the moment, then where does that put Mikey? You know, he just totally outplayed him. But as you said, I think a lot of it credit goes down to the defence as well, just snuffing it out and not allowing the Warrington forwards to get a platform to allow Williams to do what he does best. You know, you look at all the Warrington forwards. You know, it was actually none of them. You know, like, even the likes of Vaughan just weren't able to make any ground at all. And I think they did at one stage in the second half. I think they were camped down an hour and a half, in hour 20, and Danny Walker just gave somebody an absolute spraying because they just weren't ready, or something was not happening right as it should be. And I thought, yeah, we've got this now, because they're just, you know, they've gone now, and yeah, it's just all down to that defence.
Yeah, there's no doubt he's giving England head coach Shaun Wane plenty to think about. We've talked about defence and how good it was. I mean, James Batchelor, 40 tackles, Captain Elliot Mincello, 41 tackles, and Dean Hadley leading from the front on 47 tackles. Not only did he make 47 tackles, 15 carries, 100 metres. Ben was talking about Mikey Lewis and the form he's in. Well, you would say Dean Hadley's probably in the form of his life as well.
Yeah, he is. Yeah, I think for me, Dean Hadley's just been a different level this year. You know, the guy's a machine. You know, he just, you know, if it moves, he tackles it. If, you know, puts in the minutes. You know, he scores the odd try and everything. And I think if it wasn't for Mikey, he probably would be getting the Man of Steel points as well. You know, and I think to an extent, early in the season, I think he's gone under the radar. But I think now people start to notice how integral and key is to the way the team performs and how effective they are. And I think it was Matthew Shaw who tweeted after the game, you know, Dean Hadley for England. And you got to think on Dino's current performances and the way he's playing, he has to be in Shaun Wane's eyes of a place in the end of season England games.
Yeah, and Ben, I mean, it's interesting, isn't it? Willie Peters. He pinpointed Dean Hadley before he even come to the club, and he said he was a player that impressed him the most for watching. And I think Dean Hadley was the first player that Willie Peters spoke to upon being named the head coach. What's become apparent though, and it's great credit to the backroom staff and Willie Peters and what the infrastructure they're putting behind the team, that we're at a point of the season where we've got a fully fit Hull Kingston first team squad, which is almost unheard of for this stage of the season. Normally, we'd have players playing simply because there's no one else available, and it didn't leave the coach much room to manoeuvre in terms of picking players and shifting people about. But Hadley's one who's benefited from, you know, whatever's going on behind the scenes, because, you know, let's be honest, Hadley, you know, he'd be in the team a couple of weeks, then he'd be out for a couple of weeks, then he might get an injury layoff for 3 months, and then he'd come back in. The fact he's playing week in, week out, not only are we reaping the benefits as a team, but he's reaping the benefits. And this is why people are talking about him potentially for England and why he's so highly thought of. And it's just great to see him performing so well, because not only is he a great player, it looks like he's a great bloke as well. You know, level-headed, always one of the first to come and sign autographs, blah, 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 all that kind of stuff. Just great for Dean Hadley, and there'll be lots of Rovers fans who are delighted to see him playing so well at the moment.
Yeah, I can definitely echo the sentiments about him being the unsung player. He's definitely one of the highest working hard in players in the team. He's versatile, he's resilient. In terms of, you know, if Willie Pearce wants to play front row, if Willie Pearce wants to play back row or loose forward, he'll be up to the task every week. And I'm glad that people notice it, because even though he's not game changer, he didn't really score like match-winning tries or what have you. But I'm glad that his work right now is going unnoticed, and yeah, it'd be great to see him in England shirt. Really, he deserves it in my eyes. He's just brilliant. Top what?
Yeah, and I mean, we talked about it being a team effort, James. We saw the forwards fronting up in attack and defence. What was really impressive though as well was the kick return meters. 𝗵𝗂𝗃𝗂𝗀 184 meters. 𝗀𝗽𝗆𝗆 already mentioned him, but 124 meters. Ryan Hall 123 meters. 𝗵𝗂𝗃𝗂𝗀 8 tackle busts. Ryan Hall 6 tackle busts. 𝗂𝗃𝗆𝗃 5 tackle busts. It's that kind of effort, isn't it, that gets us right on the front foot, which gives the opportunity for Michael Lewis, Tyrone May to produce that bit of magic that we might need or gain as further field position. It also helps the forwards out as well, because they're not having to be relied upon to get us further up the pitch as much. And I mean, 𝗵𝗂𝗃𝗂𝗀, we're gonna talk about him more in stat attack, but for me, if we was doing a list of players for Player of the Year, he'd be featuring right up there, because I think he's been an outstanding signing for the Robins. Obviously, he had a bit of a tough start to his season. We saw what happened with his kicking, and then Willie played fullback, and thankfully Willie Peters reverted back to his normal position, and that's where he's been playing his best rugby league for Hull Kingston Rovers.
Yeah. I think again, moving him from fullback to centre, I think it was obviously a master stroke. I mean, key in the success he's had this season. It was always a risk, I think, when Peter said he was going to play fullback, because he'd always, I think most of his career had been at centre, but he's just been phenomenal in action. Just seems to sort of make yardage every time. Just always seems to be able to have that knack of taking a half chance and managing to score from it. And his try on the last time Friday night, again, just really deserved it for the effort he put in, as had all the back line. Those stats you read out, I think it just really shows what a great team effort it was. Everybody from 1 to 17 contributed to that win on Friday night. And we've already at the beginning of the program, we've wanted an 80-minute performance all season, and we've got that on Friday night in bucket loads, and hopefully that's going to give them the confidence and the springboard to continue that for the rest of the season.
Yeah, Ben, what was your emotions at the end of the game? Was it one of jubilation? Was it one of relief? Was it I don't know. We talked about, didn't we, about how some Rovers supporters probably were a little bit sceptical as whether they could go over to Warrington and get the result. So obviously, when they do get that result, it means that people are obviously on such a high. I suppose in the context of the season, though, it is just 2 more points. Although we've already mentioned there was so much more behind it, which made it such a much more of a satisfying victory. How did you feel at the end of 80 minutes?
I was probably one of them that joined in with the rest of the crowd when we was on about going all the way to Old Trafford. So that's how probably excited I was at the end of the game. And yeah, it definitely. I think it was probably like that night when I probably believed that we could actually do it. We could actually go all the way, because we're going up against a Warrington team and a Sam Burgess who bear in mind has had a really good debut season, probably the best debut seasons in my opinion, probably the Coach of the Year, Sam. But yeah, he's been a massive credit to the team. That probably bottled it the last few years. So the last few times they've even tried competing for the grand final or Challenge Cups or what have you. And he's the credit, the belief he's put into the team has been brilliant. But like I say though, but going back to Rovers, I think we was all pretty much ecstatic about the potential this team can go. I remember on the way home from the coach, I couldn't probably get to sleep because all the lads were probably chanting all the way home. So yeah, it was a really good night. It was absolutely awesome.
Yeah, and you're right to point out Sam Burgess, because he was very magnanimous in defeat, and he did heap praise on the Robins, and of course he's good friends with Willie Peters, so I'm sure they'd have had a good old chinwag about the game. James, I mean, the Rovers supporters, of course, the club had put on discounted coach travel. It was only £1 to go down there. Supporters responded in big numbers, but not just in numbers, in noise as well. And in that second half, there's no doubt that the players knew full well that the supporters were behind them. And interestingly, the press conference there, Michael Lewis was talking about the special bond between the supporters and the team. And anyone who was lucky enough to be at the open training session yesterday, it's great to see the team and the supporters as one. And when you do feel that there is that bond there, of course, winning games of rugby league helps. Let's not beat about the bush. Everyone loves you when you're winning games, but there does seem to be a real bond there between supporters and players.
There is, and I think that's really what the club's all about. I think they've gone out of the way to sort of keep the supporters involved and sort of to meet new initiatives like Craven Street, etc. It does help when you're winning on the pitch as well. But I think it just also goes back to when we did get relegated, and actually how the fans and the club really came together after that and sort of galvanised each other to a real big extent. And I think that has just continued through now, and I think it's just become part of the club's DNA. But the support on Friday night was just outstanding. And everybody, the noise from pre-game, first half through the second half was just unbelievable. And I think it helps when you go into a deep ground like Warrington. I think we've obviously got great memories of the Halliwell Jones with the grand final win in 2006 and the playoff win in 2021 and a few others as well. So it's one of my favourite away grounds, and I think it's a really good atmosphere. It's conducive to really getting behind your team, because you've got that roof, you've got that covered accommodation, and that just obviously amplifies all the noise enormously. But yeah, full credit to every single person who went along to Warrington on Friday night and probably got home with having left their voices in Warrington and probably very early on Saturday morning. I think we got on about 10 to 2, I think.
Yeah, with some ringing in their ears. And I agree with you, James. Warrington was one of my favourite grounds to go to until they charged me £6.20 for a can of Somersby cider. And I thought, no, that's you down the list now.
You should have gone, Chris, the word of advice, go in the Rodney before the game. We went in the Rodney, we got there so early, went in the Rodney beforehand. Less than £4 a pint.
There you go. Great advice. Right, it's time for Stat Attack. Okay, so for this week's Stat Attack, we take a look at the season so far in terms of players and the team. So we look at who the top try scorers are for the Robins at the moment, and we have Mikey Lewis in 6th place in Super League on 13. 𝗏𝗏𝗄𝗏 is on 12 tries in 8th position, and Ryan Hall is in 13th place on 10 tries. Liam Marshall of the Wigan Warriors leading the way out on 20 tries, and interestingly, then 3 players, Mikey Lewis, 𝗏𝗏𝗄𝗏 and Ryan Hall, have scored 38% of the Robins tries so far this season, which is, of course, 92 tries, and the Robins are the top try scorers right now. Assists, Mikey Lewis is leading Super League on 19 assists, with Niall Evalds in 4th place on 17. That is 77 assists for the Robins that the Robins have had this season. Lewis and Evalds have contributed 46% of the assists for the whole season, which is incredible. Tackles, Cameron Smith at Leeds, he's in 1st place on 766 tackles. Elliot Minchella's in 4th place in Super League on 646, with Dean Hadley in 7th place on 623. James Batchelor, he's in 18th place on 554. Then 3 players have contributed 29.7% of all the tackles for the Robins so far. Tackle busts, Miller at Leeds, he's in 1st place on 165, with Ryan Hall in 4th place on 117 tackle busts. Mikey Lewis is just behind him in 5th place on 108, while 𝗏𝗏𝗄𝗏 is 13th in Super League for 79 tackle busts. Carries, no surprise really. Duffy at Warrington, he's in 1st place on 402. Ryan Hall's in 3rd place on 379 carries for the season, with 𝗏𝗏𝗄𝗏 in 8th place on 311 metres made. Duffy again, of course, most carries, so he's got the most metres, 3,696. Ryan Hall in 2nd place in Super League with 2,792 metres. 𝗏𝗧𝗂𝗀𝗏 in 6th place for the Robins, 2,621. Errors, Elliot Wallace at Huddersfield, he tops Super League with 26. Ryan Hall is down in 3rd place on 25 errors for the season. And Tanganoa, he's in 7th place on 23 errors for the season. Offloads, Herman Esse from that lot, he's on 43 offloads for the season, which is more, just a bit more than the players have actually offloaded this season. So he's just picked the whole team, I think. Elliot Minchella, he's on 10. He's in 10th with 27 offloads. And Sam Buckley's in 11th, also on 27 offloads. If we look at team stats, tries scored, Robins 92, St Helens 90, Wigan 90. And we've conceded the fewest points in Super League. We're averaging just 12.9 points a game conceded, which is absolutely fantastic, as we've just alluded to, with Danny Ward and Brett Delaney having such an important impact in terms of the Robins defence. And if we look at points scored for the season, you've got Wigan on 525 points, Warrington Wolves on 504 points, and Hull Kingston Rovers in 3rd place on 503 points. Anything stand out for you there, James, in terms of them numbers?
Yeah, a couple of things actually. One was really the average points against, just under 13 a game, and I think again it just really reiterates the work that Brett Delaney and Danny Ward have. I think we don't really give enough credit to, but Danny's come in and done a fantastic job as well. That was always our Achilles heel. We've never had any problems scoring tries. It's always been, we can score 20, but we might concede 19. Now we can score the 20, we score the 30, but conceding 10. And it's a big difference, and that's why we're where we are. And the number of tackles from Batchelor, considering how many he was actually out for 6 weeks, to be so high up in the still so high up in the in that table, just shows that if he had been played for those 6 weeks, he probably would have been top of the tree. Again, another player I think who goes very much under the radar, but probably if he spoke to the players and the team, is one that they just value enormously, for his tackling capability, etc. So yeah, some quite interesting stuff there.
Yeah, I mean, what you said about Batchelor, before his injury, him and Minchella were almost neck and neck in terms of their defence, and the fact he's had so long out and he's still in the top 20 players in Super League for tackles is fantastic. Ben, what stood out for me was the balance that we seem to have in the team between the left and right edge. So when you look at the stats, you've got Ryan Hall and 𝗏𝗧𝗂𝗀𝗏𝗏 are pretty much there or thereabouts together, whether it's tries, whether it's tackle busts, whether it's carries, whether it's meters. And that is, it had been a problem for a number of years, hasn't it, where we didn't seem to have that balance. It used to be such left edge orientated. Now we've got that foil on the right in terms of 𝗏𝗏𝗧𝗂𝗀𝗏𝗏, and it just shows you his importance to the team and just how well 𝗏𝗏𝗧𝗂𝗏𝗏 was adapted to life with the Robins, and it probably highlights as well how important he is at centre for us.
Yeah, I think barring probably the missed tackles for 𝗏𝗏𝗂𝗀𝗏𝗏, or maybe just that right edge in general, I think that's probably something to improve on for them. That I think is probably the weakest area for Rovers. But I remember talking to my mate Aaron, you give 𝗏𝗏𝗂𝗏𝗏 the ball, and he's just such a danger going forward. I think I remember in the first few games of the season, I think he was our leading try scorer for the first few games, because he was just such a danger. It was kind of like what James alluded to with Lewis. He could just make a try out of nothing really. It was just one of them players. But yeah, he's definitely been a great sign in terms of going forward. He's definitely still that world-class centre that we all know from the NRL, really. But yeah, it's been quality signing, and it's great to see, like you say, Chris, the attacking quad they've got on both sides rather than just on one side.
Yeah, and regular listeners and viewers of the Rowing Pod will know that numbers are not my strong point. So no doubt people will be out there fact checking right now and will be coming back to me with the actual correct numbers. So no, it should all be right. Right, it's time for Keith's Corner. Now, we did threaten me. He said 5 minutes isn't long enough for this bit, so don't cut me off. So it's an extended version of Keith's Corner. It's 6 minutes and 16 seconds. He had something he wanted to get off his chest. He was very proud of this as well, by the way. So, Keith, if you're listening, thank you for giving up your time to contribute to this week's Robin Pod. Here's Keith's Corner. What you got for us this week, Keith?
Hello, how are you? All right?
Yeah, good, thanks, mate.
Right, what we've got this week? Well, last few weeks, well, over this season anyway, we've been seeing in the press about all these different players moving from club to club without any transfer fees and all this sort of stuff. And it just brought to mind about how it all started, and it was through a bloke called 𝗫𝗫𝗁, who when he first started off, he was brought up in the Balmain area, and he played for 𝗀𝗂𝗏𝗏𝗏 Wanderers. And he also, like his older brother Victor, rowed for the Haberfield Rowing Club, which is an amateur sport. And he rowed in the eights, which won a big trophy in that era, the King's Cup. Anyway, at the age of 17, he signed for Balmain, and he became the youngest player ever to play in a grand final when they met St George. But he played as an amateur, so he could continue with his strictly non-professional sport of rowing. And in 67, he was selected to play his first test against New Zealand at the cricket ground. By this time, he was getting paid, but was not happy with the terms of his contract. So he applied to the Tigers for a transfer. Now, at that time, the clubs were able to prevent any professional player who had played in one of their teams from playing with any other club, even if the player wasn't even playing for them, it was on their retained list. Like the UK, once you signed for Rovers, like I did, you couldn't go anywhere else until they either flogged you or you went on they struck you off. Anyway, he applied for it. His request that he asked for a transfer was refused, so he appealed to the New South Wales Rugby League. But then he withdrew his appeal before it was aired and agreed to play for Balmain again in the 68 season for more money. At the end of 68, he was still not happy with what was going on. So he applied to be placed on the transfer list again, but was again refused. So he said, right, okay. So they said, no, you're on our retained list. You're not going anywhere. So he sat out that season. And in 69, he took the legal action and fought for over 2 years for the right of players to transfer to another club without the burden of a transfer fee. The New South Wales Equity Court granted 𝗫𝗁 an application to have the league's transfer system declared not invalid, and they deemed it was unreasonable restraint of trade, which caused mayhem in the game. The league applied to the Higher Court of Australia, but then they said, 𝗬𝗪𝗔's right. That's how it stands now. Everybody's a free agent. Now, I know that because when I went there, the side had to pay transfer fee for me when I first went, and then at the end of that season, I was a free agent. So the implications of it was that South Sydney was one of the top teams at the time. They lost 3 internationals in a month. Ray Brannigan, John O'Neill and Ron Coote all left. And 𝗫𝗁 himself went to Penrith Panthers. And he played for them for 3 seasons. Then he moved to eastern suburbs, but he broke his arm in that season, preventing him playing in his 38 win over St George in the grand final. Then he spent his final year. He went back to Balmain, where it all started. Now, this didn't affect the UK, other than players were free to come here. And the big thing about it was that it strengthened the hold of the Australian Rugby League, because you had top players going from Sydney into Newcastle, into the bush, coaching, making it a more professional game. And that was, we talked about the other day about how much or how the game had changed and why it had changed. And to me, this was one of the biggest things. Then 20 years later, or 24 years later, the Bosman ruling came out when Steve McNamara became the most lucrative transfer in British football. Now, rugby league didn't really alter. They had a different ups and downs, different types of bans, and you can't go here, you can't go there. But in 1968, the sports transfer system was changed to allow players aged 24 or over to move between clubs at the end of their contract without any fee being paid. So it meant the players was getting more money. This is how the full-time professional came into it. This is what made our game as it is now. Whether it's good or bad, that's everybody's opinion. But the last really big transfer was in 2023 when New Zealand Warriors paid £700,000, which equivalent today is just over £1 million for Sam Tompkins. And to be fair, no disrespect to Sam, it didn't go real well in Australia and New Zealand. So this is what it's all about. Players nowadays can go from club to club and they don't have to pay a transfer fee. So that transfer fee that they was paying can now go to the players. And your agents come in, you know, negotiating for this, negotiating for that. And to me, the full-time professional, all right, we still have amateur, you know, semi-professional, should I say, in the lower leagues. But then players can still go or leave after the contract's finished, right? They've brought contracts in, which they never used to have before.
Well, there you go. Another trip down memory lane with Keith Pollard. And we're going to have another trip down memory lane now with Robins Remembered. This week's featured player is Sewell Kelly, signed in 1956 alongside Dave Elliott by Hull KR coach Joe Ramsden from Pontefract junior side Willow Park. He started off as a standoff before moving to centre, before becoming a regular at full-back. Despite a slow start for the Robins, it was season 57-58 when he became a first team regular, and in season 58-59 he set a new point scoring record of 268, with him getting 4 tries and 128 goals. A regular in the side during the late 50s and early 60s, Kellett helped the Robins break a 12-game losing streak against fierce rivals Hull FC. His point scoring exploits led to him playing for Yorkshire against the touring New Zealand side at Craven Park in 1961. And in 1964, he helped Rovers reach Wembley for the very first time. Unfortunately, losing 13 points to 5 against Widnes. He was a recipient of the first ever Player of the Year award in the 63-64 season, with his points tallied for the Robins standing at 1,556. He left Rovers in January 1968 and joined hometown club Featherstone for £500. He played 382 games during his 22-year career with the Rovers. Scoring 2,493 points, and he's second behind Mike Fletcher in the list of goal kickers and top point scorers. And what's remarkable about Sewell Kelly is that he never set out to be a goal kicker. When Rovers offered him a trial, his dad gave him one bit of advice, which was, if they ask you, can you kick, say yes. During his trial game, he kicked a goal and a conversion, and as they say, the rest is history. Sewell Kelly was a points machine and is regarded as one of the club's greatest ever kickers. James, what's your memories of Sewell Kelly?
Even I'm not all that, Chris. But I mean, seriously though, you got to think about those records and sort of how, you know, what the game was like in those days with, you know, sort of big stonking great big, well, hobnail boots more or less, muddy pitches, balls, leather balls with laces on that got probably weighed like a boulder when they got wet. So to be able to sort of kick that many goals in those sort of conditions, it just shows what a player and a kicker it must have been.
And what was remarkable as well.
I think also they used to do the old toe poke as well, didn't they? Rather than sort of, it was anywhere he coined it around the corner style. I think the last Rose player I saw do a kick like that was John Doherty.
Yeah, well,
and he was quite good, apart from at Wembley in '86, but that's a different story.
Apart from the one that counted.
Yeah.
No, I think we're being unfair to John. But what was remarkable about Sewell Group and his contribution as well is at a time when the Robins weren't necessarily competing at the top of rugby league, and the fact he was able to set so many records, and of course he contributed to the Robins getting to the first ever Wembley appearance is fantastic. So next week we'll be bringing you another Robins Remembered. Castleford up next, Ben, on Friday night. Obviously we've seen Castleford already this season. We've seen where they are in the league table. The Robins go into this with a fully fit squad. The squad's that fit, we're able to not name seasoned NRL centre Tom Opperchick in the squad. No reports of injury, nothing's come out about that. Simply just dropped from the 21-man squad. I mean, it's been a long time, hasn't it, Ben, where I suppose a quota player has been dropped from the squad just purely tactical reasons and just can't get into the side.
Yeah, it's definitely question marks about Tom Opperchick in a minute. Maybe questions asked whether it just fell out of favour with the team. But yeah, it's proven. I've always said you've always got to play with best team going forward, even if you have to give up your quota players, and it is what it is. But unfortunately, the next question you probably have to ask is, are we going to sign someone to replace Opperchick, because we're obviously going to be paying him a lot of money to just sit on the sidelines in a minute. It's not good for our salary cap in a minute. Hence why we're probably going to allude to Reece Martin coming up soon. So that'll probably my best shout for Tom Opperchick. But going back to your original point, it's really great to see it's just a fully fit team.
Yeah, and Michael Morton, just going back to Cyril Kellett, he said Kellett came back to play against KR in Snowstorm and knocked us out. I mean, he did go on to enjoy a renaissance in his career at Featherstone, and he finished with some remarkable points tallies. So yeah, he did enjoy his time there, and I think he did come back to show Rovers and Holland Rovers a few times as well. James, Castleford on Friday night, like we've said, we know what to expect. I suppose, if we're honest, though, this is all about Hull Kingston Rovers, isn't it? And the key to defeating Warrington was taking it in our stride almost, and I'm sure Willie Peters is doing that. He's very level-headed. The Rovers mantra is never get too high when you win and don't get too low when you lose. And it's important that the Warrington game's almost forgot about, isn't it? We concentrate on what was good, we review the game and look what was bad, and we aim to work on that and improve against Castleford. And it's next one up now, isn't it? It's an opportunity to get 2 more points. We go again.
It is, and I suppose in some ways, and this is might sound a bit daft thing to say, this game's probably more important than the Warrington game, because if we don't go out and beat Castleford, then it's almost like the effort in beating Warrington on Friday night has come to naught. We're back where we were. So I think it's important that we stick to what worked so well on Friday night and repeat it on again against Cass. I think it'd be quite a difficult game. I think obviously the game was a very tough game at the Jungle earlier in the season, where, let's face it, we went out our best, but we managed to sort of grind out a win thanks to Jez's drop goal 5 minutes from the end. And I think that was when Cass had just started to sort of, I think, get their act together and started, they played Wigan, I think, the week before or something like that. So it was a tough game. The teams have gone off the boil the last couple of games, but yeah, so hopefully it's going to be, another win for Rovers. The unknown factor, I think, is obviously going to be the number of ex-Rovers players in that squad will be wanting to probably try and prove a point.
Yeah, who knows when we come to the end of the season how important that 1-point victory over Castleford may have been. Ben, like I said, Castleford, they're
They've not really got anything to play for other than securing third from bottom spot and making sure that the best of the bottom three. It's a game we can't take lightly, isn't it, though? Because it's not, it's almost like there's no point putting everything into that Warrington game and then you come up unstuck against Castleford. And every game pretty much now to the end of the season is a cup final. And it's almost that game in isolation because the 2 points are just so important when we've seen, obviously, Wigan defeating Leigh last night and we've seen where Warrington are on the table. And, it looks like it's going to be a three-horse race come the end of the season. Saints might make a late charge if they get their act together. Every 2 points is absolutely critical now between now and the end of the season.
Yeah, like there's definitely two ways you can look into that game. It's like one it's like Rovers going to kick on from the Warrington game because, like you say, Chris, every match is going to be critical now. Every loss could be one loss could define us being like finishing third, or winning every game from now could get us into first. It's definitely going to be a good, interesting race for the title. But you got to look at the other example of Cass, who probably won 3 of the last 5. If they bring that winning form into Cass's side, I think into that side, the opponents are going to look to be a bit of a danger for Rovers and cause us some problems. Like as James alluded to, it's probably going to be a tough game. But if we want to keep up with Wigan and maybe Warrington in terms of points difference, we're going to maybe looking to make a win by 20 points or more, really.
Yeah, and that brings us to question time. Every week, I ask you to send in your questions via social media or even live as we are recording right now. The first question I'm going to put out there, and I'm going to direct it to you, Ben, is from Carl. He says, am I the only person who thinks 𝗧𝗏𝗂𝗁 is better than 𝗫𝗏𝗏𝗀? Is he?
Well, I probably got a bit more bias towards 𝗫𝗏𝗏𝗀 in terms of the player that he was before the NRL with Wigan. I thought, he was probably world-class centre back then, and even though we hadn't seen much of him when he was at Dolphins or even I think it was West Tigers after that. Obviously we didn't see much of 𝗫𝗏𝗏𝗀, and he hadn't really obviously made the same top-notch performances as we used to seeing him before pre-NRL. Anyways, I think personally 𝗫𝗏𝗏𝗀 is probably one of them players that you definitely want in the team every week, and that's probably my personal opinion. It's just great. It's just great that everyone else has got their other opinions as well, really. But yeah, in terms of current form, I'd definitely say 𝗫𝗏𝗏𝗀.
Yeah, I'm going to stick with you, Ben. I've got a question from over on X from Michael Matthews. He's asked, does 𝗓𝗓𝗄𝗏𝗏𝗏 𝗀𝗏 and AJ Wallace, have they got a future at Rovers?
AJ Wallace, I think I remember watching a reserves game, and he just didn't look like he was just enjoying himself at all. So I think a loan move's probably the best for him right now to get that game time. In terms of AJ Wallace's future, I mean, I can't see why not. It's definitely a good addition to our back row, but and unfortunately the problem with having that much depth in the squad, not everyone's going to get game time, and I don't think we even played AJ Wallace once yet. He's just been playing reserves rugby, and with Phoenix as well. He's had probably more first team action than AJ Wallace, but it's very few far in between, and I think we're all hoping for Phoenix to actually grow into a traditional first team fullback, but I think he's struggling in that sense to grow. So I think if he would have to have a future in the team, I could probably see him being a scrum half or hooker, really, if he wants to see himself having a future at Rovers.
Yeah, I mean, of course, Phoenix has been playing most of his rugby league this season at Oldham. Of course, still training with Robins. I think his future pretty much probably does lie elsewhere. I can't see him forcing his way into the first team. So, yeah, we'll see what happens come the end of the season. Over on X, Russell Tever, he asks, is Mikey Lewis the best player in Super League? I think we've answered that pretty unanimously earlier on in the Robin pod when we was talking about his performance against Warrington. Question for you, James. Nick Shepherd. Rhys Martin is an 80-minute second rower, as is Batchelor. 𝗂𝗡𝗴𝗏 is devastating coming off the bench. Do we see 𝗂𝗡𝗏𝗏 moving up to front row or Martin coming off? Bear in mind, Martin could be our goal kicker. Of course, it's been announced that Rhys Martin is leaving the Leeds Rhinos come the end of the season. Heavily rumoured to be signed for the Robins, although, of course, nothing officially announced. I suppose, James, that question there, 3 don't go into 2, do they? So it is going to be interesting to see if we do sign Rhys Martin, how them 3 players will line up, and who knows? I don't know. It's it's hard to answer, I suppose. Who knows?
I tell you what, it'd be a lovely problem to have, won't it? And it'll give 𝗬𝗏𝗍𝗂𝗏 quite a few headaches, I think. But I think 𝗂𝗏𝗏𝗀𝗃𝗃𝗃 𝗀𝗃𝗃's better off the bench. I think coming off and sort of having that sort of impact, he seems to have had his best games when he's done that. So that obviously that would leave you with Martin and Batchelor in the second row. The question then is, who would you bring off? But again, it's difficult. It's difficult because, like I say, we've been crying out for a goal kicker, and we've got probably one of the literally the best in the game potentially coming to the club. So you've got to sort of say he's got to stay on, whatever. Batch, he's got to stay on because of his defensive capabilities. So you then say, yeah, would Tangana go into the into a middle? If we've got Staunton leaving, as the rumours have been earlier in the season, that is off to Wakefield, and that probably potentially solves that problem for you, because I think again Staunton's the last few games he's been really good. I've always really rated him. So potentially if he's going, then that gives that space and that flexibility in as a prop.
Yeah, I mean, of course, as well, don't forget next season we're going to have Jared Warawara-Hargreaves, we're going to have Jesse Sue, we're going to have Dean Hadley, we're going to have Sam Luckley, we're going to have Jack Brown, we're signing Eric Dorrow from Bradford. So competition for places all over the park. Yeah, to name a few. So the competition across the board is huge, isn't it? So yeah, let's see what happens there. Dawn Kirby on X, he asked, do you think last week's game was the best defensive performance of the year? Yes. Do you think we can replicate this performance given our difficult running? I hope so, and I think we will have to, bear in mind some of the tricky away fixtures we've got, particularly Wigan away. With this in mind, do you think a top 2 is now possible? Yes, 100%. And I think if Rovers are to make the grand final, I think a home semi-final draw is pretty much imperative to help us achieve that. Next question. On there, Big Jim Slade makes a point. He says we were top after beating Salford away last year. So actually, it wasn't that too long ago that we was top of Super League. Craig Lucas, Rhys Martin is supposed to be signed and on the dotted line. Is he getting citizenship and coming off the quota, or is there a player leaving 𝗬𝗏𝗍𝗂𝗏𝗏? Obviously, there was a report out earlier on in the season, wasn't there, that the RFL or Super League are looking at changing the quota rules, and players will become British citizens, then become exempt off it. I think that isn't coming into play though until the following season. And if it is rumoured Rhys Martin signs a 2-year contract, it'd be the second season when he becomes eligible to apply for British citizenship, which would then remove him as a quota player. Interestingly, 𝗂𝗏𝗏𝗀𝗃𝗃 is another player based on how long he's lived in the country, being able to apply for British citizenship. And of course, the same would apply to him. So who knows? Let's see what happens there. Still a lot of moving parts on that one. What are the questions we've got? I direct this one at you, Ben. 2025 backup halfback. We say our recruitment is over, and I'm sure there's little to nothing left on the cap. Are we running with Lenny Ellis as backup half next year? I don't know. We're probably going to need a bit more experience covered. Ben, what do you reckon?
I think Ollie Leyland as well. I think he can play there, but as you can see, like we've been very fortunate with fitness levels all year, and luckily Tyrone and Lewis haven't had any long-term injuries. So, and especially we've got someone like Danny Richardson who's been probably been great at Saints and Castleford. We've got him that got that experience there. But in terms of getting having no experience scrum half, I think it's probably just a waste of cap, really. And then it'll definitely exceed that said salary cap that they alluded to, really. So I think it's probably best to have maybe someone from the youth waiting on the sidelines, really, ready to go to come on, and especially there, like he'll just save up cap.
Yeah, I mean the club will hold their hands up, won't they, with the Ben Reynolds deal, and I admit they've got that wrong. Danny Richardson, we've only seen him twice, haven't we? Featured this season so far against London. Obviously, we don't know what his future holds, whether he's looking to move elsewhere and secure first team rugby league. I mean, if he was to stay at the Robins next season and back up, I'm sure many people won't complain at that, would they? So, who knows? I'm sure though the Robins like to cover all the bases, don't they? And I'd be surprised if Lenny Ellis is the backup halfback, although it's hard to recruit someone in that position when you're pretty much telling them you're only a bit part player and you're only going to play in the event of an injury or suspension to Tyrone May or Mikey Lewis. So we'll see what happens there. Final question comes from Ian Dixon on X. Joe Burgess, social media use, standing down this Friday, ? Not acceptable given the disgraceful events in Hull last weekend. And I'm not talking about the Dullers capitulation either. Obviously, Joe Burgess and his support or referencing post from Andrew Tate and Tommy Robinson has divided the supporter base somewhat and has left some people in favour of what he's done, some people not in favour of him. It's interesting that the club have had to remind him of his responsibility as someone who's representing, and this goes down as well into in contractual and when you're employed and you're representing them and what their policy is on stuff. I suppose we all know, and it's a well-worn rhetoric at the moment, everyone's got a right to an opinion. I suppose nobody has to go out of their way, though, to let people know what their opinion is and whether they agree with certain things. I think Joe Burgess's main point is that he might agree with Andrew Tate and Tommy Robinson on certain things they say, but he might also not agree with other things that they say, which is his prerogative as well. James, what's your take on it?
It is a difficult one. I think, as you say, Burgess is entitled to his opinion on anything, just as we all are. But I think, given his profile at the club, and sort of being seen as a representative of the club, it probably puts the club in quite a difficult position, because they've obviously they have a very strong policy about inclusion and sort of women's teams, disabled teams, the whole lot through etc. I suppose the first time he did it, he was sort of thinking, okay, he made a mistake, but then perhaps to compound it, it puts the club in a difficult position, and it also, to an extent, changes the agenda from the PR, from the news agenda. So I think Willie Peters at his press conference yesterday was having to field questions about what's the club going to do about Joe Burgess? What does the club think about Joe Burgess? When all the discussion should have been around, you got top of Super League last week. How do you feel about being able to maintain that throughout the rest of the season? So it is a difficult one. I think he's in a position where he is representative of the club. People will see him as an influencer within the club, and it's just one of those things that you just has to be careful with.
Yeah, I suppose my opinion on it is it was similar to the when Taylor May was around the club and he was with his brother. Look, we've got our best. Hull Kicks and Rovers have got the best chance they've ever had to finish in the top two of Super League, let alone win the league leaders. So any distraction, anything that takes the focus away from that is not wanted and is not needed. Now, of course, everyone's entitled to opinion and you know, whether you agree with their opinion or not. What we don't want to be doing, though, like you said, James, is taking the attention, the focus away from the team and what they're striving to achieve. So hopefully that's the end of that, and we're able to focus 100% on the team and hopefully get into Old Trafford, which is what everybody wants and everybody hopes they will achieve. Ben, James, a huge thank you for joining us on the Robin Pod this week. If you go into the game on Friday, which is very close to a sellout, which will be fantastic for the players, and it'll be great to be able to cheer on the boys, hopefully to 2 points and another victory at Sewell Group Craven Park. The Robin Pod is powered by Budget Ties Auto Centre, the only car specialist trusted by the players, club officials and supporters of Hull Kingston Rovers. For now, live, love, laugh and be happy.